another episode of the Archaeology of Dark Shadows. And I have my little friend Comet here with me. She was sitting in my chair, but I decided to kick her out this time. Say hello to everybody, Comet. Say hello, hello. So, she is a sweet little girl. But she's not the topic of the program. There is no doubt that Dark Shadows ran as long as it did due to the introduction of vampire Barnabas Collins and the way that he was portrayed by Jonathan Frid. Jonathan Frid was a superb actor. He had great classical training, and he gave a depth to that kind of character that I don't think anybody else could have done. He was remarkable. However, there were two storylines prior to the vampire's release from his coffin that I found to be more mysterious and even more disturbing than what came after. In its first year, beginning in June of 1966, and I watched it from day one, the occult came to the forefront with Bill Malloy's murder and his ghost, as well as the ghost of the widows from Widow's Hill, who appeared at the old house, and I think actually in Collinwood too, and that of Josette Collins, who was kind of a protector. And then came my personal favorite, and that's the story of Roger Collins and his estranged wife Laura, who was in fact, the legendary Phoenix. And that is what I want to investigate with you in this episode. Is the Phoenix? What is it? And perhaps how Laura became a Phoenix. So let me first refresh our memories on the storyline. Roger Collins and his wife and his young son David returned to live at Collinwood after his marriage to Laura. Stockbridge Collins fell apart. And they had been living in Atlanta, Georgia, and Laura ended up living in, coincidentally, Phoenix, Arizona. She had been absent from Roger and David's lives for approximately 10 years before her reappearance in Collinsport. Now, Laura was played by Diana Malay, who had a most mysterious air about her, just herself, not what she portrayed necessarily, but the actress herself seemed aloof and distant, if you will. She seemed disconnected with reality. And all that mattered to her was her son David at that point, who, after 10 years, she decided she wanted to be custodial parent of him, and consumed with her ultimately in the flames of the Phoenix. Now, as a Phoenix, she is powerful and uses the power to remove those obstacles that are in her way. Still, she had a small bit of mercy in her. Elizabeth Stoddard, her sister-in-law, was one who stood in her way. She did not want David taken by this woman because this woman, Elizabeth believed, was a little off the beaten path, if you will, and she was right. And she caused a mysterious illness to fall on Elizabeth to render her unconscious when she could have just as easily killed her, but did not. However, kill is exactly what she did to parapsychologist Dr. Peter Guthrie, who got too close to the truth, actually figured out what she was, and he was permanently disposed of. Now, this is the part that I found very, very interesting. Laura's apartment in Phoenix was destroyed by fire, while she was in Collinsport. But the police in Phoenix found the remains of a woman who was eventually identified as that of Laura Collins. There was no doubt, there could be no doubt. This dead woman was Laura Collins in Phoenix, and here's this live woman, Laura Collins, in Collinsport, Maine. How could that be? Well, the story and settings are richly atmospheric for this story arc, and if you've not watched this story, it is a must. You will love it. It's thoroughly enjoyable, and it set the stage for later dark creatures to come onto the show. However, what is a Phoenix? Because at the time the program aired, when I was I was 13 years old, I had not heard of the Phoenix. And I was very into monsters and that sort of thing, but I'd never heard of the Phoenix. So, what is a Phoenix and where did it originate? So let's take a look together, eh? The phoenix is an immortal bird, which is associated with Greek mythology, though on Dark Shadows its origins were Egyptian, which was also the case somewhat in the real world, in our reality, that it had its origins of the myth in Greece, in the Greece, and also in Egypt. So, but a figure such as this immortal bird appeared in a lot of cultures throughout the world, which to me always lends credibility that there was some kind of creature that was real, not immortal, but real. The phoenix accomplishes immortality by being consumed by flames every 100 years, and gains its life anew by rising from its own ashes. And this is why Laura Stockbridge Collins was... This is my other cat making disturbance over there. Sorry about that, folks. Alright, Laura Stockbridge Collins was at Collinwood to be consumed by flames, but this time not alone. This time she wanted her son David to be consumed in flames with her. Now, I said this happens every 100 years. Laura actually appeared in the 1897 story arc with Quentin as the Phoenix, and she also appeared in the 1840 story arc of the Judah Zachary and Gerard Stiles story. And so she had a penchant for Collins' men. And some of them were quite handsome. You can't deny that about Quentin Collins, I'm sure. But, so she was, at least 3 of her incarnations were spent there at Collinwood in Collinsport. However, according to the legend, only one phoenix can exist at a time. So this would have been a death sentence for young David Collins, because he could not become a phoenix as she was a phoenix. Only one, unless they changed the mythology for the show. Only one could exist at a time. Now, many believe the phoenix legend arises from ancient Egypt, and that is the concept that I hold most to. Excuse me. Herodotus and later scholars believe Egyptian texts were strongly influenced by classical Greek folklore. In all origin stories, the central theme is renewal with strong connections to reincarnation. Now, concerning the mystical bird's longevity, we can take a look to an ancient fragment of text from the Mycenaean Greece. And it's called Precepts of Charon. And it is attributed to the 6th century Greek poet Hesiod. I hope I said that right. This fragment reveals that the lifespan of the phoenix is about 972 times the life expectancy of humans. Now, that fragment of text reads, and I quote, "A chattering crow lives out 9 generations of aged man, but a stage life is 4 times that of a crow's. And a raven's life makes 3 stages old, while the phoenix outlives 9 ravens. But we, the rich-haired nymphs, daughters of Zeus and Aegisholder, outlive 10 phoenixes." So when you put all the numbers together, if you know the numerology of what's going on, it comes down to 972 years for the phoenix. Now, Herodotus, writing in the 5th century, says the following, and I quote, "The people of Egypt have also another sacred bird known as the phoenix, though never have I seen it other than in pictures. It is indeed a great rarity, even in Egypt, as the residents of Heliopolis claim it visits only once every 500 years to their village when the old phoenix dies." Continuing, its size and appearance are as follows. The plumage is partly red, partly golden, whilst the general make and size are almost that of an eagle. They tell a story of what this bird does, which does not seem to be to me to be credible, if you will, according to him, that it comes all the way from Arabia and brings that parent bird all the way plastered over with myrrh to the temple of the sun in Heliopolis. And there it buries the parent bird's body. They say that in order to bring him, he first forms a ball of myrrh as big as he can possibly carry. And then he hollows out the ball and puts his parent inside, after which he covers over the opening with fresh myrrh. And the ball is then exactly the same same weight as the first. So he brings it from Arabia all the way to Egypt, this bird, plastered over, as I've said, and deposits it in the temple of the sun in Heliopolis. End quote. So we know the phoenix was a beautiful bird, of many colors. There are many different images you can find online that show the phoenix with all its glorious colors. And if indeed it were real, it would have been a gloriously beautiful bird. But, so, none of the great powers that Laura possessed is mentioned in the legends. That's what I found surprising. She's powerful. She has occult power. She has powers that could actually outdo Lara Parker's Angelique character, who was a witch, and a very powerful one. But they were they were quite a, what do you call it? Well, they went head to head, and it was just interesting. But I think Laura was a little more powerful than Angelique. And I know purists, Dark Shadows purists, probably don't want to hear that, but I think really that is the case. So anyways, she didn't have, the legends didn't tell of the powers like those that Laura had as a phoenix. And to take poetic license is fine, as the storyline would have been very boring had they not given her some special attributes. Those attributes still may have come from mythology. I just not have seen a place in mythology where that might have been from. But that doesn't mean it's not there. I'm not a genius and I don't know everything God knows. So I want to give a little more detailed summary here of that storyline, and then look at one remaining question about Laura Collins. So this was on the internet. It's not attributed to any particular author, and this covers the period from December 14th, 1966 to March 20th, 1967, and it reads, Roger's estranged wife, Laura Collins, returns to Collinwood after a 10-year absence. She tells Maggie Evans that she has returned to town after being away for a long time in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, Laura points out that the phoenix is a mystic bird that rises from the ashes of fire and is reborn. While drunk, Sam Evans paints a portrait of Laura in flames, but does not remember painting it the next day. Laura shows up at Collinwood and announces that she wants custody of David Collins. Now, David has a nightmare about his mother in which he sees her engulfed in flames. Victoria Winters brings Sam's unfinished portrait of Laura back to Collinwood. David is awakened by his mother's face coming out of the portrait at him. The sheriff questions Laura after the Phoenix police claim that they have found the burned body of Laura Collins. And Victoria and Frank Garner, the Collins family lawyer, discover a crypt containing a Laura Murdoch Stockbridge, who died by fire 200 years earlier. At the old house, Josette's portrait turns into the portrait of Laura and David in flames that Sam had painted. Elizabeth Collins Stoddard, fearing Laura's mental stability, orders her to leave Collinwood without David, and Laura looks into the fire of the fireplace, and Elizabeth falls down the stairs. Laura visits Elizabeth and puts her into a deep trance to keep her from getting in the way of her plans to take David with her. Dr. Peter Guthrie, a parapsychologist, arrives to assess Elizabeth's condition and has her moved to a hospital. A seance is held. Josette speaks through Victoria, warning that there is an evil presence at Collinwood, and Dr. Guthrie tells Laura he is aware of her powers and will expose her for what she is. And Laura Murdoch Stockbridge's coffin is exhumed and found, guess what, to be empty. David sees himself burning in the fireplace. An old newspaper article reports that Laura Murdoch died in a fire with a boy named David in her arms in one of her previous incarnations. And Dr. Guthrie confronts Laura, accusing her of being the undead, and she causes his car to crash and burst into flames, killing him. Now, David goes to the old fishing shack to wait for his mother at a prearranged meeting with Laura. And Laura arrives and causes the shack to start to burn. Josette's ghost helps Victoria to figure out where David is. As the fishing shack burns around Laura, she beckons David to join her in the flames. And Victoria arrives to the shack, begging him not to follow his mother into the flames, that he would die if he did so. And Laura has David recite the story of the phoenix, and as he finishes the story, Laura calls him to the flames. Elizabeth comes out of the trance as Laura starts to burn, and Victoria keeps David from going to his mother, and Laura burns to death to be reborn again. Now, the one question that remains is, how did Laura become that evil occult creature? And it was not explained, I don't believe, on the show. I don't remember an explanation of how she became that. However, Big Finish Productions, over the last, 10, 12 years, has done a series of Dark Shadows audio programs. I personally do not like them, probably because they used music other than Robert Cobert's music. And Robert Cobert's music was almost like a character itself in the program. To me, it's not Dark Shadows if that music is not there. But anyways, Big Finish Productions did an audio program featuring Diana Malay, again, as Laura, and it featured Lara Parker as Angelique. And that did indeed explain her origins. And that drama is entitled Bloodfire. And it is available free here on YouTube to watch, not on my channel. I'll try to remember to put a link for it in the description of this video, because I'm not going to spoil it here, but you can check and see how Laura became the Phoenix. And at the same time, in that same program, which is really lengthy, it's over 2 hours, you also get more of a clear insight into why Angelique became the witch that we all know and love. So it's a very good story, and was published to commemorate Dark Shadows' 50th anniversary. 50 years. I cannot believe that it's been that long. If you want to watch the Phoenix storyline, or any of the storylines, Dark Shadows in its entirety is available free on Tubi, Tubi, on the internet, and you can check it out, catch up with what was going on. And I found that in watching it on Tubi that there's so much that I'd forgotten, so check that out when you get a chance. Now, I want to say one other thing about this series of videos. When I started with number 1, which was about the rock that I spotted on Widow's Hill, I intended for it to only be that one program, but that was well received, so I continued doing, I did a second one on the Leviathans, and then this one on the Phoenix. But it's not going to be all archaeology, obviously. There's going to be more programs, but there's going to be history, archaeology, and a lot of things that will help us to understand where the characters come from, why they were what they were, and I hope that you'll enjoy the continued series. I invite you to send me your comments, your ideas, and I will more than certainly look at your ideas and consider those for a future program. Now, I want to show you something real quick before I go, and I should have had it over here, but I did not. Now, I received in the mail this past week 2 MP3 audio CDs. Now, these are available on Amazon, and they're $6.99 a piece plus shipping. The original series of 32 books, that's 32 counting House of Dark Shadows adaptation. The 32 books by Marilyn Ross are available on CD. And they're read by Catherine Lee Scott, who played Maggie Evans, and so many other characters on the show. I no longer have my set of the books. I had the original books. I had many of them signed by Dan Ross, or Marilyn Ross was actually Dan Ross. I had many of them autographed by him. And I got to talk to him a number of times on the phone. Fascinating man. But if you don't want to pay the price for the original books, you can find them on eBay, you can find them on Amazon, and you can find them on Etsy. These are a reasonable alternative. Catherine Lee Scott does an excellent job at reading those books. And in the next episode, I'm going to look at zombies, and zombies at Collinwood, particularly too from the book The Curse of Collinwood, which was, I believe, the 5th in the series, and my favorite. Barnabas wasn't in it, but fascinating story. So that, I believe, is what my next episode will be about. So that's what I have for you this time. Next time out, like I said, we're going to do zombies, and probably the zombies from Curse of Collinwood are not familiar to most of you, but I promise you it's going to be interesting. I hope. So, until then, I want you all to do me a great favor. Stay happy, stay healthy, and know that you are loved here at the Dennis Morrison Channel and Charlie Cat Productions. Not just something I say. I truly, genuinely love each and every one of you on the other side of that screen and appreciate you more than you could possibly know. And that is from my heart. Okay, love you all heaps and bunches, and gobs, and as my dear mother used to say that, love you heaps and bunches and gobs. God bless you all. See you very soon. Stay well.